However, we've seen that some students, definitely from the band group, wrote slogans and bad words or cursing words.
Trying to encourage students to go on protests.
Right, you are, and they are calling for violence around the university grounds. So I think we must change our way of thinking. We must change the ideology that we perceive actions and reactions, and we have to understand that dealing with the education system as it was in the old days is no more beneficial for the time being. The education system, the whole education system must be developed in order to give a real education quality that would encourage students to think and to be more brilliant and to be more aware of what's going on around themselves. So without having one step forward to the education system, developing the education system itself, I think we will suffer for some time from the violence and from the misleading of other students, because remember that the band group is still a small group, but how they evoke the other folks of people, that's the question. So we must deal with the situation again in a more different way, in a more clear way, in a more organized way, and we must know that the security solution is not only the safe solution in order to guarantee a peaceful environment. We have to hold dialogues, conclusive dialogues with all parties, like the band group students as well as other sympathetic students with them, because you have a lot of the students that would be sympathizing with the band folks, so that's the point. So we have to lead conclusive dialogues with all students and to raise their awareness to what's going on and their importance in the society too. You see, so because we've seen and witnessed that a lot of other universities in more than one occasion that they cut streets and they terrify people because of anything. So I think we don't need to see such a situation again.
And we move to another issue that made some of the banners in the papers today, and we read releasing 60 Egyptians that were held in Libya. Libyan authorities have said that 60 illegal Egyptians and Sudanese citizens were arrested in an area located 50 kilometers away from the Egyptian borders. Libyan sources added that the detainees are currently being interrogated by the authorities. They added that the detained Egyptians were all in good health and were being treated in accordance to the law. The Libyan Interior Ministry forces had launched a campaign and arrested some 70 Egyptians and Africans from their homes for illegal entry into the country. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that the Egyptian detainees will be deported after interrogations have been completed. The ministry also renewed its advice to Egyptians to be cautious and to travel to Libya by plane if necessary. Why are Egyptians targeted in Libya?
Very good question, actually. Definitely Libya and Egypt has been along for all the time. So when you target Egyptians in Libya, claiming that this was done by the Brotherhood, it means that there would be a problem between Egypt and Libya. And this what's required. I mean, to have all the time quarrels and problems with Egypt and the neighbors. And we've witnessed also some problems with the Sudan borders, and we've witnessed some problems with Tunisia. And I mean, every time, every minute and then you have a problem with some neighbors. So, and this is required to keep Egypt always in problems and to shift its focus from development to solving problems and quarrels with the neighbors. This is number one. Number two, it's very strange. I mean, you are talking about illegal Egyptians who went to Libya. You enter Libya by your ID.
I don't know how
come
did they get out of the country?
Exactly. So how come they entered the country from the beginning? And I mean, which interrogations and why? Why you hold the Egyptians for the time being, and what happened after that? I mean, and the existence of Egyptians in Libya is very important because they are the workers who build Libya, and they are the teachers who work in the schools and universities. So I think it is it shows a bit of violence against Egyptians and Egypt, and I hope that it will not be repeated again. And I hope that the Libyan government would take more safe measurements to protect the Egyptians there, because we've witnessed a lot of dead last week.
Yeah.
Where was
it was a massacre.
It was a massacre. Where was the Interior Ministry of Libya? I mean, why they didn't do their part? Their part and their job in order to save the people first, and second to catch the criminals who did that. I mean, there is a lot of contradictions between the two situations from the same entity. Yesterday you leave assassins to kill Egyptians, and the second day you seize Egyptians because of anything. I mean, it's not accepted, and I hope that the Libyan government would take more safe measurements with the Egyptians and to protect their interest in Libya, because they serve there.
And we move to Al-Yom Al-Sabah, where we read the presidency says no change to the decision of fortifying the Supreme Electoral Commission. The presidential advisor says in the case the parties refuse the law, the president will address the nation to highlight the reasons behind suspending any amendments to the law. Sir, why are parties refusing the law?
I think they are afraid. I think they feel that the law itself is not fair, because it will deprive them from showing their objection.
Okay.
And we've witnessed recently that a lot of procedures and like supreme orders were replaced on courts as well as on justice in general, and this is not accepted. If you are a state of law, then we have to apply the laws as written in the books of laws. You know, we just cannot contradict ourselves. We issue a law or constitution, then we issue a law, then we issue supreme orders that will contradict the law and stop and halting the work. This is not accepted, and I don't understand how this comes and how this applied. You issue a law, which means that the states approved it before, and then the following day you come with an idea or with a supreme order to hold some point of the law, or try to contradict what's written in the law. So I think it is the people's right to object on any action from the government and from the regime, because in this way it protects the interests of all parties who share in the democratic process.
And we move to some regional news, and we move to the Syrian crisis. The Syrian army enters Yabrud, the last stronghold of the opposition. Syrian troops advanced in the key rebel bastion of Yabrud as the country's civil war entered its fourth year, with more than 146,000 dead, millions displaced, and peace efforts stalled. Meanwhile, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, NGO, said army forces were advancing with support from Lebanon's Shiite movement Hezbollah. A military source said 13 rebel chiefs leading operations are dead, adding that there were many deaths among the insurgents. Okay, do you see any light at the end of this tunnel of violence, now the crisis entering its fourth year?
I hope peace and safety for all Arab region, and I think that the Syrian regime is trying to control the situation again, but I think the more violence you show, the more instability will occur. And we still don't understand the situation in Syria, what happened and why it's going on for the fifth year. We are talking about fifth year actually, because I mean, it shows that the violence will not end easily, and this means that there will be more violence for the coming year until you understand the problem. What is the problem, and why still the two parties fight on what they are fighting on? You know, and I think democracy should also be practiced in Syria as well as all Arab countries in order to achieve the peaceful environment that we all wish for. And I think also that the Syrian country has been indulged with many issues around its neighbors, you know, and I think that points of accusation would point to other neighbors in the region that try to keep Syria busy in its own own problems.
And the last item we choose today comes from Al-Ahram, page 8, and we read, the historic referendum today on the fate of Crimea. The UN Security Council objects. Russia uses the veto and huge demonstrations in Moscow against the occupation. Okay, how do you see the situation in Ukraine?
It is very confusing actually, because we are talking about the Kurm province. It is a very strategic province or piece of Ukraine, and it is still very important for Russia to have such an outlet to the Black Sea, as well as it is very wealthy with its natural gas, which will be needed during winter times in Russia. So it is very strategic area, and Ukraine, of course, Russia claims that Ukraine is controlled by some fanatic groups, and they don't recognize them, and they don't give them a legal picture or legal frame in order to deal with them. So Russia needs or wants to deal with the situation in its own way, which means violence and army and troops and all such death and accidents. However, the Security Council tries to solve the situation peacefully. We hope that everything will stay calm and peaceful in all the world, and I think that Russia is wise enough to solve its problem.
And now we have more details in the following report about the crisis in Ukraine.